Riley in the backyard.
911, are you reporting the wildland fire?
Yes, there's one across the street from us. It looks like the house is on fire.
But while I have you on the phone, can you tell me how big the fire is?
Right now, it doesn't look too big. The fire here? Do I leave?
If you feel threatened, you can leave, yes.
And the fire is burning very close to my house.
Okay.
Well, good morning. I'm Assistant Chief Todd Meyer of Operations for the Gig Harbor Fire and Medic 1. Today we're out here in sunny Cromwell area and we're going to talk about wildfire risk in the Gig Harbor community. Currently our operations have 19 firefighters on duty every day, and we respond to, basically we're an all hazard fire department. We respond to medical aid calls, hazardous material calls, motor vehicle accidents, and also fires, which include wildland fires. Our coverage area is all the way from the community of Purdy all the way down to Fox Island and the Gig Harbor Peninsula, including the city. So what we're going to do today is talk about risk of wildfire here in Gig Harbor. In some situations you may hear is wildland urban interface, wildland fire, brush fires, forest fires, and we're going to try to talk about how does that affect us here in Gig Harbor and some ways to mitigate our risk, not only for you, the public, but also for our firefighters. So come with me and we're going to talk about some different mitigating factors concerning your property here in Gig Harbor. So three main topics I want to cover today here while we're out here in Cromwell is that we want to talk about reducing our risk, and there's three main topics that we're going to talk about. Reducing the fuels on your property. We're also going to talk about how do you protect around your home, and then we're also going to talk about vehicle access. One good place to go for some additional resources is firewise.org. And some of the things that they talk about on firewise.org are some of the things that we're going to cover today. And I want to show you where a property owner has done some thinning to reduce wildfire risk to protect their assets. And so behind me, we have a piece of property that has not been mitigated or has not been thinned. You have pretty significant coverage of ground fuels. You have ladder fuels. You have some deadened down stuff that's from storms or just rotting material. You also have your ladder fuels, which also then connect into your crown fuels. And so when we have a fire that's introduced or ignition source that's introduced to stuff like this, and we have this 85-degree day today, the probability of this fire getting away from us is greatly increased. Well, as property owners here in Western Washington, we have the opportunity to thin out some of our properties. And if we look over here to the left, this same property owner took part of his acreage, and this is about an acre of a fuel break. This person, what they did was they came in and thinned out this portion of the property. They reduced the ground fuels. They removed some of the ladder fuels, which connect the ground fuels to the crown fuels or the upper trees. And then they also did some thinning out of the trees. They incorporated this with the neighborhood driveway. So not only does this help protect their assets or their structures on their property, but it also helps protect the neighborhood and gives us as firefighters a chance to, if we have a fire, a wildland fire or brush fire in this area, this gives us some potential defensible space around their structures and also a place where we can potentially do work to stop or slow down the fire. So now we're going to talk about closer to a house or closer to a structure. One of the things that we have to be aware of, that a lot of times we think that the fire front will come through and take out a house. Well, the National Fire Protection Agency says that more than half of the houses that are damaged or destroyed are taken out by ember casts. And one of the things that we need to think about with ember cast is that whether it's a house fire or a brush fire, embers can travel a quarter mile to a half mile away and land on opportunities, if you will, concerning around structures. And so we want to reduce those opportunities and mitigate that risk. So some of the things that we want to talk about when we're talking about closer to houses, we want to talk about continuing to thin out the fuels, reduce that energy around the houses. When we can, if we can water our lawn and keep things green. If we can't do that, keep it shorter and keep it well maintained. When we're putting in our plants around our houses. We want to think about fire-resistant plants that are well maintained and keeping them away from the structures as best we can. Also thinking about when we build our houses or when we remodel our houses, making sure that when we can have fire-resistant material, whether it's fire-resistant siding, fire-resistant roofs, and also when we're looking at that construction, thinking about void spaces. Void spaces under decks, void spaces in vents, and can we put screens on those to keep the embers out? So also too, embers take opportunities, and when be thinking about your decks and the things that you have on your decks that are combustible, and it can be simple as lawn furniture and padding for lawn furniture that are very combustible, or decorations that you have out on your deck. So be thinking about those things when you are not using those things. Can we put them and store them away? The other thing that we want to talk about is landscaping and sometimes ground cover here in the Pacific Northwest. We like to use bark, we like to use wood chips, and sometimes we put those wood chips right all the way to that maybe cedar siding, that combustible siding. We need to have a break in there. Better yet, instead of chips, rocks are a good non-combustible material that create that space, and when an ember falls on that rocks, there's less chance of that ember spreading to something that's going to combust. So one of the things that's unique to Gig Harbor and to our waterfront here in the Puget Sound is our wind, our topography, our slope, our southern aspects. A lot of times we have fires down here in the Cromwell area that it's been hot all day, it's southern aspect, it's on a slope. It just creates an opportunity for ignitions to just create havoc for us and cause a wildland fire. So creating defensible space around your house helps us reduce that risk and helps protect your assets concerning a wildland fire. So having a well-maintained yard and thinning out those fuels or reducing those fuels that approach your house is a great way to reduce that risk. Some people even rent goats to help take care of that, take care of those blackberry bushes and some of that brush. So that may be an option for you too. So now we want to talk about when firefighters are responding to your emergency. One of the things that is a great help is access to your property or to your household. One of the things that helps us out a lot, and we have an address sign program at Gig Harbor Fire and Medic 1, is well-marked driveways and well-marked addresses. That is an awesome opportunity to help us get to you sooner. Also, the other thing that helps us get to you sooner is well-marked and well-maintained driveways. I know you don't have to have a driveway that you could almost land an airplane on, but one of the things is that think about access. Think about how wide your road is, and your driveways and your road or your access points make great fuel breaks. And when we talked about thinning earlier, take advantage of your driveway, and maybe that's where you do your thinning project, where you reduce the fuels and reduce the brush around your driveway. So not only does good access help you when a wildland fire happens, but it also happens when you have a well-marked driveway, you have good access, and we can get emergency vehicles down your driveway. That's how it helps out when someone's having chest pain or you have some other emergency that you've called 911 for. So we want to get there quickly for you, and we want to help you, but we need your help. Also, the other thing that if you have the opportunity when to help the firefighters respond is to potentially put in fire hydrants. Whether you talk with your neighbors or you're talking with your homeowners association, but when you have the opportunity, and if it's possible to put in a fire hydrant, that greatly helps us with putting out fires, whether it's a wildland fire or a structure fire. So hydrants are a good thing. Thank you for spending time with us today. One of the reasons why we're here, probably the main reason why we're asking you to partner with Gig Harbor Fire and Medic 1 to reduce our risk and your risk when we're responding to wildland fires. The mitigation principles that we put into effect not only help us with wildland fires, but also help us with all the other emergencies that we have. So thank you very much for this opportunity.